I've been living in rural Ohio for about the last year. Since moving in with my husband, I have become what some would call the crazy cat lady of our neighborhood. It's not that I have a lot of cats, it's that I feed and befriend every stray I come across. Living in the country means you're surrounded by wildlife: deer, mice, skunks, rats, raccoons, possums, and you guessed it, cats. Humans are terrible creatures sometimes. They have a habit of taking in animals they can't handle, and then quickly changing their minds when things get too hard. When that happens in the city, most people drop off their pets at a local shelter. Here in the country, they just throw them outside. If those unloved furballs aren't fixed, they team up and make more of themselves. If I had to guess, our small town alone has about 50 strays. I would guess I've made friends with about 15 of them in the past year. I leave food on my front and back porch for them every night. I brush the more friendly ones, and I've even kidnapped a few for a day to take them in for vaccines. I can't adopt them all, but I want to try and make life a little less hard for these guys. Lately, something strange has been happening, though. I have a tendency to stay up late. My husband started working the night shift about a year ago, and it's hard to get used to sleeping in an empty bed. Since we moved for his job, I've developed a case of separation insomnia. I only really sleep well on his days off. I work the average 7 to 3 shift. And when I get home, I try to clean the house, tend to our pets, indoor and outdoor, and make dinner or breakfast for him to eat before work. During this time, my husband Jake is fast asleep. He sleeps just fine without me, lucky bastard. Sometimes I nap with him after I make dinner, and he wakes up around 9 p.m. to get ready for work. Once he's gone, I tend to just turn on the TV and game to pass the time until I have to get myself ready for work. Jake and I pass like ships in the night. It's hard to manage sometimes, but we're working towards buying the house we're currently renting. After this past week, though, I hope he can be convinced to relocate. About 6 days ago, I was in the living room watching a show about hoarding when I heard something big dragging across our porch. It was around 11 p.m. and Jake had literally only been at work for an hour at this point. Sounds on our porch weren't unusual. There was a cat buffet out there. But whatever had made this sounded bigger than a cat. Its weight was closer to that of a dog or even a person. I paused the television and waited in silence for it to happen again. My dog, Bella, slept soundly at my feet. Nothing happened. Our front door leads straight into our living room. There are 2 huge windows that never seem to be completely covered by the curtains, and our couch sits right below those windows. I try to rearrange the curtains to the part of the window that isn't covered, farthest away from my face. If I'm laying on the couch, it's nearest to my feet. I peeked out one of the windows onto the porch and saw absolutely nothing there. So I simply pressed play and kept watching my shows. When the sun came up, nothing was unusual, except the cat food was completely untouched. The bowl on the back porch was empty like I expected. Nothing happened for a few days. Honestly, I had kind of forgotten about the sounds until 2 nights ago. This time, the dragging happened around 2 a.m. I was actually upstairs in our bedroom when I heard it this time. Our bedroom window is right above the porch, and I was shocked to realize I could hear this sound from all the way upstairs. It was far too heavy to be a cat. I muted the TV and listened, slightly nervous. My dog was in the bed next to me, listening as well. The dragging continued. It was like someone was dragging their shoes across the wooden porch. Bella started to growl. It was a low, throaty sound I had never heard her make before. And the fact that my dog was upset by this made me nervous. I couldn't call Jake until he went on break at 3 a.m. Not knowing what else to really do, I got up from bed and walked quietly to the window. I opened it about a finger's width and listened for the dragging. Meow. The sound of a cat almost had me laughing with relief. Of course it wasn't a person. Bella had never once growled at a cat on our porch before, but maybe it was because we were all the way upstairs. I wondered if the sound was Toby. He was an orange tabby that was heavier than all the rest of the strays. He had a few other houses on the street feeding him. The dragging continued. Even Toby didn't seem to be that heavy. For almost 15 minutes, something dragged across my porch from one end to the other repetitively, and then it stopped completely. Bella stopped growling and went back to sleep, and I waited nervously to call Jake. He thought it was Toby. "You're tired," he told me. "You're up at night, watching TV by yourself. Your imagination is running away with you." That didn't explain why Bella was upset. But maybe he was right. For all I knew, there was a stray cat I didn't know yet, putzing around on our porch. The next morning, the cat food bowl was toppled over, but none of the food inside was eaten. This all leads me to what happened last night, just a few hours ago. Jake was off work Monday. We're spending the night enjoying each other's company and watching movies on the couch. Neither of us heard anything strange. I went to work Tuesday morning on basically no sleep at all. I came home to do my usual routine and threw Jake's work uniform into the laundry. While I waited for it to dry, I made the mistake of falling asleep on the couch. I woke up around 2 a.m. to the sound of a cat meowing. Moonlight was streaming in through the crack where the curtains didn't fully cover the window by my feet. The television had turned itself off because it was on a set timer. Jake must have gotten ready and left for work without waking me up. Bella lay on the floor beside the couch, and again, she was growling. Meow, meow. Bella growled louder at the sound of it. Her hackles were raised, and could tell she was working her way up to a bark. Dragging again, the thing lumbered across the porch over to the window. I could see the shape of it blocking out the light where the curtain didn't cover. In that moment, I was sure of two things. The first was that there was not a cat on my porch at all. The second was that whatever was out there was looking into my living room. Meow. This was a damn near perfect cat impression. If I couldn't see the huge, horrifying human-shaped shadow at my window, I might have even believed it. My heart was pounding out of my chest. I couldn't move. Bella jumped to her feet, ran to the side of the window where the shadow loomed, and let out one good ferocious bark. Then she seemed to really see whoever was at the window. She began to tremble and whimper. Meow, the shadow said to her. I was too frightened to move. My dog was whining at my feet, and I couldn't tell if this weirdo on my porch was able to see me laying there or not. After a few moments of silence, a bark resounded through the room. At first, I thought Bella had found her voice again, but she was still shaking at my feet. No sound had come from her mouth. The shadow at the window was mimicking her. I could feel tears start to stream down my face. All I could think about was a question. Had Jake locked the door before he left for work? I don't know how long I laid there, crying in silence and fear, listening to this shadowy person meow and bark. When the sun came up around 5 a.m., the shadow lifted. It seemed to slowly drag itself away from the window and off my porch. It's now 6 a.m. as I write this, and Bella and I are still shaking. Jake should be getting off work soon. When he gets here, I'm telling him I want to move. When Jake came home yesterday morning, he asked me why the porch was covered in cat food. I had no idea what he meant, so I nervously opened the front door and looked. The entire bowl was flipped over, and bits of crushed cat food were spread across the entirety of our porch. It looked like someone had dumped the bowl out and proceeded to stomp all the food into dusty bits. The cat food on the back porch was completely untouched. I tried to explain everything that had happened while Jake was gone, but I guess the idea of a meowing monster tormenting his wife sat very strangely with him. So he pulled up our Ring camera and tried to review the footage taken at around 2 a.m. I was honestly too afraid to watch it. I just waited in silence for him to finish. He definitely looked disturbed by what he saw, but he was clearly not convinced it was a monster. Some teenager must be pulling a screwed-up prank on us, he decided. You should move both cat bowls to the back porch from now on. I argued the idea. What would moving the food do about this dude sitting at our window, meowing like a crazy person? I told him I wanted to leave the house altogether. Jake sighed. You know we can't move right now. All of our money is tied up in this place, and the lease we signed isn't up for another 6 months. Screw the lease, I said indignantly. I want to feel safe in my living room without someone or something looking into it. We argued for a bit longer than I want to admit, before I had to give up. In the end, he was right. We have nowhere else to go so soon. The nearest hotel is a good hour-and-a-half drive from Jake's machinist job. If I wanted to move that badly, he agreed we would look into places and move our lease once it was up. In the meantime, he agreed to get new living room curtains and upgrade us to a Ring doorbell instead of the one we have just sitting inside our living room. The rest of the day was pretty uneventful. I went to work and came home with new curtains. I picked a dark brown shade that let in basically no light. It's a terrible choice for a living room, but it would block out any chance of seeing a shadow at night. I got home to find Bella had not touched her food all day. She was curled up in a pile of clothes in our laundry room, sleeping. I tried to let her outside to go potty, and she refused to go out until I went out there with her. While we were out, Toby, the orange tabby, stopped by for a bite and rubbed on Bella's leg. She seemed to enjoy his affection until he meowed up at her. Then Bella growled at him. That shocked me and Toby both. Bella had never growled at Toby before. She's never growled at any cat. Bella loves cats. I took her inside and she went back to sleep in the laundry room again. I also decided to stop sitting in the living room at night. Before Jake left for work, I gathered everything I would need for food and entertainment before basically locking myself in our room until Jake got home. Bella came with me, of course, and I turned the TV up as loud as I could reasonably put it, hoping I would drown out any noise if my night visitor decided to come back. It was once again around 2 a.m. when I heard a faint dragging sound coming from below. Like I said before, my bedroom is right above the porch. Bella woke up from her comfortable sleep at my side and started shaking. I turned up the TV and hoped I could just wait it out. I could not. After a few minutes, there was a loud bang. Bella whimpered. I reminded myself of what Jake said. It was just some kid playing a prank. I wasn't sure I believed his idea, though. Bang, bang, bang. The noises grew louder. It sounded like someone was smacking their hands on the side of my house in frustration, like the stranger could hear my TV drowning out their intrusion, and that made them angry. I turned the volume louder. Bang, bang. The sound slapped at the old paneling of my house, only getting louder with the TV volume. The force of the hits were shaking my walls, and I started to fear this person would try to break into the house if I didn't respond to them. I reluctantly muted my television and crept towards the window. Once again, I only opened it about a finger's width. Go away. I tried to sound braver than I felt. My dog shook behind me so hard it reminded me of how she acted on the 4th of July when the fireworks went off. There was an eerie silence that followed my demand. I wondered if I had surprised the person by actually speaking to them. All I did was make things worse. Go away. The voice that repeated me from outside almost made me piss my pants. It sounded garbled and wet, like someone was talking with a mouthful of water. Go away. Go away. Go away. Each time it repeated my words, it sounded more like my voice, like it was practicing talking like me. And the banging started up again. Bang, go away, it mocked. Bang, bang, go. Bang, 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 away. A dragging sound, more dragging. The sound dragged its way along the outside of my house, back and forth, until it stopped directly below my window. I wanted to crawl back into my bed and hide myself under the covers like a child. Isn't that always the best way to hide from monsters? Bang, bang, bang. The sound was rapidly climbing its way up the side of my house, getting louder as it approached. I managed to let go of the window and shove the curtain back in place just before I heard something slap onto the glass. I fell back on my ass and stared at the curtain in horror. From the other side of the window, I heard its voice. Meow. I scrambled up from the floor and ran, booking it down the hallway and into the bathroom. Bella ran almost ahead of me as I went. I slammed the door behind us and locked it. I didn't care that I had left my phone in the bed. All I cared about was that this bathroom had a lock and no freaking windows. Bella and I stayed in that bathroom with the lights on all night long until Jake got home. He wanted to know why I didn't answer when he called me around 3 a.m. on his break. Jake doesn't seem to really believe what I told him. He's treating me like I had some kind of nightmare while he was gone at work. But I know what happened. Something crawled up the side of my house last night and tried to look in at me. Something that slapped at my windows and spoke in my voice. I wasn't asleep, and it wasn't a dream. I know this for a fact, because in the light of day, I went back into that horrible bedroom and looked at that window. I saw the greasy proof that coated the outside of the glass. There's a handprint on it. I should not be alive to write this. My last update was removed from Reddit because honestly, nothing extraordinary happened in it. It's just a typical account of me slowly losing my mind. Everyone thinks I'm crazy. My neighbors, the police, my husband, everyone. And I know that I look crazy, but I also know I'm not. 2 weeks ago, I started having nightmares. I've been dreaming that I'm stuck in the mud. I'm deep in the ground, somewhere no one can hear me. I rake my nails into the wet dirt and try to claw my way to freedom, but I never seem to reach the surface. Am I even digging in the right direction? Or am I digging myself further down? As I scream, my voice begins to thicken and gurgle. The wet mud chokes me until I wake up. When I do wake up, I'm almost never where I fell asleep. Most times I find myself laying on the couch in the living room, with the curtains wide open. Because of these occurrences, I no longer sleep at night. I come home from work and pass out in bed with my husband until he gets up for work. Then I move myself into the bathroom for the night with my dog and try my best to stay awake. I'm afraid that if I pass out in the tub, I'll wake up downstairs when that thing is back outside. My dog isn't acting like herself. She hates going outside alone, and she won't go on walks anymore. She follows me so closely throughout the house I can't tell if she's afraid for herself or for me. Every night we go into the bathtub to sit while Jake is away at work. Every night we hear the banging, the dragging, the voice that mimics mine over and over. We hear the meows that are not coming from a real cat. Every night she is with me while this thing tortures me. During the day, we hear heavy creaking coming from beneath the floorboards. Jake says the house is old and shifting, but it sounds heavier than that. It sounds like dragging, and Bella shakes like a leaf every time it starts up again. A bit more recently, I found a hole on the side of my house. It's dug deep and wide, and it seems to tunnel all the way underneath the foundation. It's kind of huge, big enough to fit a person or something pretending to be one. Jake, of course, thinks Bella dug it, but she doesn't even go outside anymore. Neither of us really do. Anyway, I'm writing this now because 3 days ago everything blew up. Jake and I were invited last month to our neighbor's daughter's birthday party. Gabby Collins was turning 7 on Saturday, and I thought it would be nice to make her some cookies in lieu of a present. The distance between houses on this road is about 1/4 of a mile, so Jake and I drove over there instead of walking in the heat. Everyone was in the backyard, so we just walked around the house. Martha Collins was at the head of a long table covered in different picnic foods. Her husband was grilling something that smelled delicious, and all the kids were running about the backyard screaming. I walked up to the table to place down the cookies and say hello to her, but her face fell the moment she saw me. "Hey, sorry if we're late. Get out," she said abruptly. I was shocked and confused. "What?" "Leave," she told me firmly. "I don't know what you think you've been doing these past few nights, but it's not funny." I had no idea what this woman was talking about. Her posture suggested she was both terrified and angry at the same time. Jake tried to interrupt her. "What are you talking about?" "Your wife has been stalking the outside of our house at night, ripping up our flower beds and screaming," she snapped back at him. At this point, people at this party were starting to look at us in confusion. I could feel the embarrassment turning my face red. Martha, I really don't know. If you ever show up at our house again, day or night, I'm going to call the police. You are not welcome here. Now get the hell off my property before I make a scene. Having no idea what else to do, Jake and I left before she made good on her word. What the hell was that woman talking about? He asked once we got into the car. I didn't answer him. I just clutched at the plate of cookies and stared at the muddy handprint on the side window of the Collins house. When we got home, we had the biggest fight of our entire relationship. If you're not the one doing it, why is Martha so sure it was you? My husband challenged me. Jacob, we have a Ring camera pointed at our front door. Wouldn't you be able to see me leaving at night to harass the neighbors? We don't have one pointed at our back door, he told me. I slammed my hands on the kitchen counter. Why don't you believe me? How could I? You've been telling me there's a monster under the house this past week. Now the neighbors are complaining that you're harassing them? You need help, Kara. The only thing I need is for my husband to trust me. I couldn't hold back the tears. Jake stood in the doorway of the kitchen for a moment before turning to leave. I love you, Kara, he told me, but I can't be here right now. I'm sorry. Jake left that night to go stay at his brother's house. I sobbed by myself for hours. Never in our entire relationship had we fought so badly. Never had either of us stayed at other places for the night. I laid in our bed and let Bella wrap herself around my feet while I cried myself to sleep. I was still laying in our bed when I woke to pounding at the door. Kara! I could hear Jake's voice calling my name from outside between his knocks. I'm sorry. I threw the covers off and ran down the hall to the stairs. He had come back to apologize. He didn't want this fight any more than I did. He must have missed me as much as I missed him, and he was here to reconcile. Something stopped me short, just a few paces from the front door. I stared at the door in front of me, listening to the knocking and pleading voice on the other side. I couldn't shake the feeling of dread building up in my stomach. Something about this situation was wrong. He knocked on the door again. His voice was thick with sorrow and tears. Kara! Jake had work tonight, I realized. And if he had called off to come talk things out with me, why was he knocking? My husband had a key. Eyes on the door, I reached down into my pocket and pulled out my phone to check the time. The clock read 2:12 a.m. I stepped backwards as the knocking continued. Kara, I can't do this anymore. The voice on the other side of the door sounded wetter now, thicker. The knocking got more forceful. Kara. With each passing second, the voice twisted into something less like my husband's. Kara. You're not my husband, I told the thing outside my door. You are not coming in. Bang! The creature slapped at the door like it had against my window so many nights ago. Bang, bang, bang. There's a monster under the house. Jake's voice gurgled at me. Bang. Monster. 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 Bang. Bang, bang. The door pounded with such a ferocity that I could hear the wood frame begin to splinter. I turned and ran up the stairs for the bathroom. Kara! I locked the bathroom door behind me and sank onto the floor. I could still hear that wretched, wet voice screaming my name. It had pretended to be Jacob, but why? I couldn't focus on that. The floor was vibrating beneath me at the force of the beating that my house was taking. It sounded like the thing was slamming its entire body onto the door over and over again. I thanked God the door was locked before I passed out in our bedroom. The bedroom. Where was Bella? I began to panic. She hadn't followed me down the stairs to answer the door, and she wasn't in our bathroom with me. She must have still been laying in our bed. The slamming abruptly stopped. The house was filled with an eerie quiet. And in the silence, I thought I heard my dog whimper. Swallowing my fear, I unlocked the bathroom door. The hallway was absolutely freezing. I hadn't noticed that before. Maybe in my rush to get down and then back up the stairs, I had simply ignored it. I scanned the hallway cautiously. My head was the only part of my body outside the bathroom door. I was ready to duck back inside and relock it in the moment I saw anything amiss. Then I saw what was actually out of place. The window at the end of the hallway by the stairs was open. How the hell did that get opened? Before I could even think to run forward and close it, I heard a bone-chilling sound come from outside. Meow. I turned and sprinted toward the bedroom. I could hear glass shatter and something heavy come crashing onto the floor behind me. It bounded down the hall after me, slamming into the door just a second after I shut and locked it. I threw myself onto the ground and crawled beneath our bed. And that's where I found Bella. She was shaking as badly as I was. Kara, the voice cooed at me. There's a monster under the house. A sound like long nails dragged from the top of the door all the way to the floor. The knob jiggled. I love you, Kara. Tears streamed down my face as I dialed the phone. The operator could barely ask what my emergency was before I was screaming my name and address at her. There's something inside my house, I told her frantically. I'm hiding under the bed. Come and get me before they get inside. And then I hung up the phone. The door rattled in its hinges, splintering the frame the same way the front door was before the creature had found its way inside through my window. I didn't understand why it was even open. Had I opened it? Had Jake? Was it possible that I had done so in my sleep, just like I feared I would? The gurgling voice outside my door changed. Now it was a mixture between two voices, my husband's and mine. Something inside my house, it told me smugly. I'm hiding under the bed. And then it was only my voice. Go away. It switched back and forth, changing between octaves that way, repeating phrases it had heard either of us say to each other. It seemed to enjoy repeating things that Jake had said to me during our fight. It used my voice to beg him to stay, and his voice to tell me he had to leave. I could do nothing but lay there and sob. I knew it was all over. This door wouldn't hold forever. It would probably only last a few more minutes. Then everything went completely quiet. The rattling stopped. The voices ceased to taunt me. All I heard was the heavy sound of it dragging itself away. And then the cops burst into my bedroom. As it turns out, the police were just next door when I called 911. Martha Collins had called about 45 minutes before I did, claiming I was outside her house again. And then they got a call from me and simply headed over. They were skeptical of my story, but my Ring camera showed me inside my house at the same time I was said to be in her yard. To be exact, the same minute she called the police, I was standing in my own front door, about to let in Jake. I don't think the police believe what happened to me. They said there's no real way someone could break into my second-story window without a way up to it. Paneling on my house is completely flat, and there's no signs of a ladder being used in the mud below. But they can't explain the way the window is broken, with the glass coming inwards and not out. They can't explain the muddy mess tracked down my hallway, and they have no idea what to make of the long scratches carved into the wood of my bedroom door. I can't explain a lot of it either. I can't explain why my Ring camera managed to catch video of me at the door, but no sound. I can't explain why my hall window was open in the first place. I can't understand why it chose to harass my neighbors. I don't know where it came from, how it found me, or why it has latched onto me. I don't know how I will explain this to my husband, who is already questioning my mental state. But most of all, I can't begin to fathom why that thing didn't kill me that night. All I know for certain is that it will be back. It always comes back.